He thought she was just a submissive housewife. He thought he could bring his mistress into their home, humiliate her, and raise his hand against her while she was 8 months pregnant. But Minho made one fatal calculation error. He forgot to check who his wife was before he married her. He thought he was striking a helpless woman. He didn't know he was waking up the Iron Rose, a former underground fighter from Lagos. What happens in the next 10 minutes isn't just a fight, it's a total dismantling of a tyrant. You need to see the look on his face when she catches his hand. Hey besties, grab your tea, silence the group chat, and let the drama unfold. Welcome to OppaTolani Besties Folktales, where Nigerian hearts meet Korean dreams. Now, I have a challenge. My stepmother swore I could never reach 1,000 besties. Please, I beg you, subscribe right now and let's prove her wrong together. Don't forget to like the video, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? The morning sun filtered through the blinds, but the air inside the penthouse was cold. Adana stood by the bedroom door, her hands clasped over her swollen belly. She had been standing there for 10 minutes, waiting. Minho stood in front of the full-length mirror, adjusting his silk tie. He checked his reflection from every angle, smoothing his expensive suit. He did not look at Adana. To him, she was just part of the furniture, like the lamp or the chair. The blue tie, Minho said, staring at his own reflection. I asked for the blue tie. This is navy. I am sorry, Minho, Adana said, her voice soft and low. The blue tie had a stain. I sent it to the dry cleaners. Minho finally turned around. He looked at her with a mixture of annoyance and disgust. He walked over to her slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the floor. He stopped inches from her face. Adana did not step back. She lowered her eyes, staring at his chest. You are useless, Minho hissed. You sit in this house all day, doing nothing but eating and sleeping, and you cannot even manage a simple tie? I cooked your breakfast, Minho. I ironed your shirts. I polished your shoes, Adana whispered. Minho laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. He reached out and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look up at him. His fingers dug into her skin. Do not list your duties to me, he said. That is the bare minimum. You should be grateful. In Nigeria, you were nobody. You had no family, no money, no name. I brought you to Seoul. I gave you this roof. I gave you clothes. Without me, you are invisible. Adana felt a muscle twitch in her jaw. Her heart was beating slow and steady, a rhythm she used to use before a fight. Her right hand, hidden behind her back, balled into a fist. She wanted to strike. She knew exactly where to hit him to make him sleep for 3 hours. But she unclenched her fist. Not yet, she told herself. For the baby. For peace. I am grateful, husband, she lied. Minho released her face with a shove. Adana stumbled slightly but caught her balance instantly. He didn't notice her grace. He only saw her clumsiness. My mother is visiting this weekend, Minho said, checking his watch. Don't embarrass me. Don't speak unless she speaks to you. And try to look less tired. You look like a peasant. He grabbed his briefcase and walked to the door. He punched in the code, beep, 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 click. He opened the door and walked out without a goodbye. The heavy door slammed shut, locking automatically. The silence returned. Adana stood frozen for a moment. Then, slowly, the slump in her shoulders disappeared. She rolled her neck, a loud crack echoing in the quiet room. She lifted her head. The submissive, scared look vanished from her eyes, replaced by a cold, predator's stare. She walked to the mirror where Minho had stood. She looked at herself. She didn't see a peasant. She saw a lioness waiting in the tall grass. Invisible, she whispered to her reflection, a small, dangerous smile touching her lips. Good. It is easier to hunt when they cannot see you. The confidence Adana felt in the mirror had to be buried deep by the time Saturday arrived. The weekend did not bring rest. It brought the storm Minho had promised. At noon, the digital lock chimed. Beep, 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 click. Adana was already standing by the entrance, head bowed, hands clasped. The door swung open, and Mrs. Park stepped in. She was a small woman with hair sprayed into a hard helmet and eyes that missed nothing. She did not look at Adana. She looked at the floor, checking for dust. Welcome, mother, Adana said, her voice respectful. Mrs. Park ignored the greeting. She walked past Adana without taking off her shoes, a deliberate insult in a Korean home. She walked into the living room, running a gloved finger along the television stand. She inspected the tip of her finger. It was clean. She looked disappointed. Make tea, Mrs. Park ordered, sitting on the leather sofa like a queen on a throne. And do not burn the leaves like last time. You foreigners have no patience. Adana went to the kitchen. Her movements were precise. She could feel the anger simmering in her chest, hot and heavy, but her hands did not shake. She was a master of control. She brewed the tea, placed it on a silver tray, and returned to the living room. She knelt to place the tea on the low table. Minho tells me you are getting big, Mrs. Park said, looking at Adana's belly with a sneer. I hope the baby does not take your features. It will be hard enough for the child being half-breed. We need it to look like a park. Adana froze for a second. The insult to her unborn child was sharp, like a needle in her heart. The baby will be healthy, mother, Adana said quietly. Don't call me mother, Mrs. Park snapped, sipping her tea. I have one son. You are just the vessel. You are the incubator. Once the heir is born, your job is done. Do not think this marriage is real. Minho needs a wife from a good soul family to merge companies with. You are just a temporary inconvenience. Adana kept her eyes on the floor. I understand my place. Good. Mrs. Park stood up, placing the half-finished tea down. Because once that baby is weaned, I have found a small apartment for you in the countryside. You will not be needed here anymore. Mrs. Park walked to the door. Tell Minho to call me. And try to lose weight after the birth. You look shameful. The door slammed shut. Adana was alone again. She stood up slowly. The silence of the apartment felt different now. It wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. She looked at the cup Mrs. Park had used. She picked it up. Her grip tightened. She didn't throw it. She didn't scream. She simply squeezed. The delicate china cracked in her hand, a sharp porcelain shard slicing her palm. A single drop of blood fell onto the white rug. Adana didn't feel the pain. She only felt the promise. Temporary, she whispered, watching her blood stain the expensive floor. We shall see who is temporary. It was 2 weeks later, well past midnight. Adana sat on the edge of the bed, unable to sleep. Her hand was wrapped in a small bandage where the teacup had cut her, a throbbing reminder of Mrs. Park's visit. The apartment was silent, but it felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Suddenly, the digital lock on the front door beeped. Beep, beep, beep. Adana stiffened. Usually, Minho came home in silence. But tonight, the heavy door opened to the sound of laughter. A woman's laughter. High-pitched, carefree, and drunk. Adana stood up slowly. She tightened the sash of her simple cotton robe over her belly and walked out of the bedroom into the living room. Minho was standing in the entryway, his suit jacket thrown carelessly over one shoulder. Clinging to his arm was a woman. She was young, Korean, and stunningly beautiful. She wore a short, shimmering dress and heels that looked sharp enough to puncture skin. Minho looked up and saw Adana. He didn't look guilty. He didn't try to hide the woman. Instead, he looked defiant. You are awake, Minho said, his voice thick with alcohol. Good. We need ice. Adana stopped in the middle of the room. She looked at the woman. The woman looked back, her eyes scanning Adana's swollen belly with a mix of amusement and disgust. Minho Oppa, the woman giggled, squeezing his arm possessively. Is this her? You didn't tell me she was so heavy. Adana, Minho said, gesturing carelessly. This is Soare. She is helping me with the new club in Gangnam. She is smart. Modern. Unlike you. Soare stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. She didn't bow. She didn't offer a greeting. She walked around Adana like a customer inspecting a damaged product. So this is the African wife, Soare said, smirking. She looks so tired, Minho. Does she even understand what we are saying? She understands orders, Minho laughed. He looked at Adana with cold, dead eyes. What are you standing there for? I said we need ice. And bring the expensive whiskey. Soare is a special guest. Adana felt a wave of heat rise up her neck. The disrespect was no longer just words. He had brought his mistress into their sanctuary, into the home where her child would sleep. Minho, Adana said, her voice low. It is late. This is our home. And, Minho challenged, stepping closer. Is this your house? Did you pay for this floor? No. You exist here because I allow it. You are just the housekeeper who carries my heir. Now move. Soare covered her mouth to hide a cruel laugh. Go on, Ajumma. Don't make him angry. Adana looked at Minho's face. She saw no love, only power. She turned around and walked to the kitchen. Her hands gripped the marble counter so hard her knuckles turned white. She could hear them behind her. She is so gloomy, Soare whispered, loud enough for Adana to hear. How do you stand it? I don't, Minho replied. That is why I have you. Adana opened the freezer. The cold air hit her face. She grabbed the ice tray. She wanted to smash it against the wall. Instead, she emptied the cubes into a bucket, one by one. Not yet, the warrior inside her whispered. Wait. That night with the ice bucket was not a one-time event. It became the new normal. For the next 2 weeks, the apartment ceased to be a home and became a prison where Adana was the inmate and Soare was the warden. Soare stopped waiting to be invited. She knew the door code. She would walk in, kick off her designer heels in the hallway, and treat Adana like invisible furniture. It was a Sunday evening. Adana was in the hallway, carefully polishing the leaves of a large potted plant. Her back ached constantly now, the baby sitting low and heavy, but she did not stop moving. To stop was to invite criticism. To rest was to be called lazy. In the living room, the television was loud. Minho and Soare were sprawled on the leather sofa. Soare's head rested on Minho's shoulder, her legs draped casually over his lap. They looked like a perfect couple, completely unbothered by the pregnant wife dusting their picture frames a few feet away. Oppa, Soare whined, her voice cutting through the noise of the TV variety show. I am starving. We missed lunch because of the meeting. Minho stroked her hair absent-mindedly. What do you want? I can order sushi from the place in Gangnam. No, Soare pouted. She sat up and looked toward the hallway, her eyes landing on Adana's back. A mischievous, cruel smile touched her lips. I want homemade food. That spicy chicken stew you said used to be your favorite. The one your mother taught her. Minho paused. He looked at Soare, then at Adana. He knew exactly what she was asking. In both Korean and Nigerian culture, asking a wife to cook for a mistress was the ultimate humiliation. It was spitting in her face. Minho smiled. He liked the power. It made him feel like a king with a harem. Adana! Minho barked, not bothering to turn his head fully. Adana froze. She slowly placed the polishing cloth in her pocket and walked to the edge of the living room. She did not bow this time. She stood straight. Yes, Minho? Soare is hungry, Minho said, pointing at his mistress like she was a prize he had won. She wants the spicy chicken stew. Make it. And make it spicy the way I like it. Adana stared at him. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not from fear, but from a rising heat that felt like lava moving through her veins. You want me to cook for her? Adana asked, her voice barely a whisper. Are you deaf? Minho snapped, his eyes narrowing. Yes. Cook for my guest. You are always complaining about being bored. Now you have a job. Go to the kitchen. Chop the vegetables. Do not make us wait. Soare giggled, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. Please hurry, Ajumma. My blood sugar is low. Minho turned back to the TV, dismissing Adana completely. You heard her. Move. Adana looked at the back of Minho's head. She looked at Soare's smug face. The baby kicked hard, a sudden, violent thud against her ribs. It felt like a signal. A wake-up call. Enough. Adana did not move toward the kitchen. She stood rooted to the spot, her breathing deepening, the silence stretching until it was ready to snap. The silence stretched until it became a physical weight in the room. The sounds of the variety show on the television seemed to fade into the background, drowned out by the thumping of Adana's heart. Minho waited for the sound of footsteps retreating to the kitchen. He waited for the sound of the knife chopping onions. But he heard nothing. Irritated, he turned his head fully this time. He saw Adana standing exactly where she had been a moment ago. Her hands were not in her pockets anymore. They were hanging loosely by her sides, relaxed and ready. I said move, Minho said, his voice dropping an octave. Why are you still standing there? Adana took a deep breath. She looked at Soare, who was watching with a smirk, and then she looked directly at Minho. No, Adana said. The word was quiet, but it hit the room like a gunshot. Soare's smirk vanished. She sat up straight, blinking in confusion. Minho's face went blank for a second, as if his brain could not process the information. What did you say? Minho asked slowly, standing up from the sofa. I said no, Adana repeated, her voice steady and clear. I am your wife, Minho. I am the mother of your child. I am not a maid, and I will not cook for your mistress in my own home. Minho's face turned a deep shade of red. The veins in his neck bulged. He had never heard her speak like this. For 3 years, she had been a ghost. A shadow. Now the shadow was speaking back. You have lost your mind, Minho whispered, walking toward her. You think because you are pregnant you have power here? You think you can embarrass me in front of my guest? She is not a guest, Adana said, her gaze locking onto Soare. She is an intruder. And you are a disrespect to the vows we took. Soare gasped. She looked at Minho, her eyes wide with fake victimhood. Appa, are you going to let her talk to you like that? She is insulting us. She is insulting you. That was the spark Minho needed. His pride, fragile and toxic, shattered. Shut up, Minho roared at Adana. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He towered over her, smelling of whiskey and rage. You are nothing. You are a charity case I picked up to warm my bed. Do not talk to me about vows. Adana did not flinch. She did not step back. She looked up at him, her eyes clear and dry. I may be nothing to you, Minho, she said calmly. But I am no longer your servant. We will see about that, Minho snarled. Go to the kitchen. Now, or I will make you go. No, Adana said for the 3rd time. Minho raised his hand. Minho's hand did not come down in a slap. Instead, he shoved her. It was a violent, 2-handed push against her chest. Adana wasn't expecting it. She stumbled backward, her heels slipping on the polished marble floor. She crashed into the wall, a sharp pain shooting up her shoulder, but her hands moved instantly to her stomach. She curled her body around the baby, protecting the life inside her. Look at you, Minho spat, pointing a shaking finger at her. You can't even stand up straight. You are weak. You are pathetic. He walked closer, emboldened by her stumble. He thought she was cowering. He thought the slump of her shoulders was fear. He did not see that her feet had shifted, widening slightly to grip the floor. He did not see that her breathing had changed from a panic to a rhythm. I told you to cook, Minho shouted, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. Are you going to move, or do I have to drag you to the kitchen by your hair? From the sofa, Soare clapped her hands, laughing. Teach her a lesson, Appa. She needs to learn respect. Maybe if she is scared enough, she will listen. Adana took a slow, deep breath. The air in her lungs felt different. It was no longer the air of a housewife trying to keep the peace. It was the air of the fighting pit. The exhaustion vanished. The back pain vanished. The only thing left was focus. She looked up at Minho. Her eyes were dark, dry, and terrifyingly calm. You touched me, Adana whispered. I will do worse than touch you, Minho threatened, stepping into her personal space. I own you. I bought you. And I can break you. Minho, Adana said, her voice dropping to a register that vibrated in the quiet room. I am giving you one chance. Walk away. Sit down. Leave me alone. Minho blinked, surprised by her tone, but his arrogance was too loud to let him hear the danger. He laughed. It was a loud, ugly sound. You are giving me a chance. You. He turned to look at Soare over his shoulder. Did you hear that? The cow is threatening the butcher. He turned back to Adana, his face twisted into a sneer. Let me show you exactly where you stand in this food chain. He lunged forward, aiming a heavy backhand slap at her face. He put his full weight into it. He wanted to hurt her. He wanted to see blood. That was his mistake. He thought he was attacking a pregnant woman who polished his shoes. He didn't know he was attacking the Iron Rose, the woman who had once cleared a room of 5 men in Lagos without dropping her purse. Adana didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She simply stopped being the wife. The lioness had woken up. Minho's palm never touched her face. Inches from her skin, Adana's left hand shot up. It was faster than a blinking eye. She caught his wrist in a grip that felt like iron. The sound of her hand stopping his was a sharp thud. Minho's eyes went wide. He tried to pull his hand back, but he couldn't. It was like his arm was trapped in the jaws of a crocodile. What? Minho gasped. Adana didn't speak. She stepped forward, invading his space. She rotated her hips and twisted Minho's wrist downward and outward. It was a simple move she had learned in the mud pits of Lagos 15 years ago. Crack. The sound was loud in the quiet apartment. Minho let out a high-pitched scream, his knees buckling instantly as the pain shot up his arm. Adana didn't let go. She drove him down, twisting the arm further behind his back until his face was pressed against the cold marble floor he was so proud of. My arm. You broke my arm. Minho shrieked, his voice filled with shock and agony. From the sofa, Soare screamed. Appa, what are you doing? Get off him. Soare, fueled by panic and adrenaline, jumped up. She grabbed a heavy glass vase from the table and ran toward Adana, raising it high to smash it over her head. Adana didn't turn around. She sensed the movement. She waited until she heard the clicking of Soare's heels right behind her. Without letting go of Minho, Adana swung her right leg backward in a perfect low arc. Her heel connected with Soare's ankle. It was a clean sweep. Soare's feet flew out from under her. She hit the floor hard, the vase flying from her hand and shattering against the wall. She landed on her back with a breathless thud, staring up at the ceiling in shock. The room went silent, except for Minho's whimpering and Soare's gasping breaths. Adana stood over them. She was breathing evenly through her nose. Her heart rate had barely increased. She looked down at Minho, who was writhing in pain, and then at Soare, who was trembling in fear. Adana released Minho's wrist. He scrambled backward, clutching his broken arm to his chest, looking at his wife like she was a ghost. "You." Minho stuttered, tears streaming down his face. "Who are you?" Adana smoothed her dress over her belly. She looked like a giant standing among children. "I am the woman you called weak," Adana said, her voice calm and cold. "I am the woman you thought was nothing. And you." She looked at Soare. "You are lucky I am a mother now. The old me would not have swept your leg. She would have broken it." Minho tried to stand, but the pain forced him back down. He realized, for the first time, that he was locked in a cage with a beast he did not understand. The apartment was quiet, but it was the silence of a graveyard. Minho lay curled on the floor, cradling his swollen wrist, his face wet with sweat and tears. Soare was pressed against the wall, her expensive dress ruined, her mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. Adana did not run to get ice. She did not call for help. Instead, she walked over to the leather armchair, Minho's favorite chair, the one he forbade anyone else from sitting in. She sat down slowly, resting her hands on her belly. She looked like a queen on a throne, looking down at her unruly subjects. "You are crazy," Minho gasped, his voice shaking. "You are a monster. I will call the police. I will have you arrested for assault." Adana laughed. It was a soft, dry sound. "Call them, Minho. Tell them you shoved your pregnant wife. Tell them you tried to hit her. Tell them she defended herself. In Korea, self-defense is tricky, but I have bruises on my arm from where you grabbed me last week. I have texts from your mother abusing me. I have witnesses." Minho's eyes darted around. He realized he had no power here. The physical pain was bad, but the fear was worse. "Why?" Minho whispered. "Why did you pretend? For 3 years, you acted like a mouse." "I did not pretend," Adana said, leaning forward. "I retired. In Lagos, I fought for money. I fought for survival. When I met you, I thought I found peace. I thought I could be soft. I killed the fighter inside me because I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a wife." She stood up and walked over to Minho. He flinched, terrified she would hit him again. "But you mistook my silence for weakness," Adana said. "You thought because I cooked your food and washed your clothes that I was your slave. You forgot that a lion does not need to roar to be dangerous. It only roars when it is time to eat." She turned her gaze to Soare. The mistress let out a small squeak of terror. "And you," Adana said. "The woman who likes to eat another woman's food. The woman who likes to sleep in another woman's bed." I didn't know," Soare stammered, shaking her head. "He told me you were stupid. He told me you wouldn't do anything." "He lied," Adana said simply. "Get out." Soare didn't move fast enough. "I said get out." Adana's voice boomed like thunder. Soare scrambled to her feet, grabbing her purse. She didn't look at Minho. She didn't care about his broken arm. She unlocked the door with trembling hands and ran into the hallway, leaving one of her shoes behind. Adana kicked the shoe into the corridor and slammed the door shut. She locked it. She turned back to Minho. "Now," Adana said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "It is just you and me, and we have a lot of accounting to do." "Accounting?" Minho spat the word out, trying to sound dangerous despite the pain radiating from his arm. He leaned against the sofa, sweat dripping down his pale face. "You are just a thug. You hit me? Fine. But you don't know who I am. I run this district. One phone call, and you disappear." Adana did not look impressed. She reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a small, black USB drive. She tossed it onto the coffee table. It landed with a soft click. Minho stared at it. His face lost the little color it had left. "You think I spent 3 years just dusting your shelves and folding your underwear?" Adana asked softly. "I told you, Minho. I was invisible. And because I was invisible, you were careless." "What is that?" Minho whispered, though he already knew. "Everything," Adana said. The illegal gambling ring in the basement of the Gangnam Club. The money laundering through the shell company in Incheon. The bribes you paid to the police chief last month. It is all there. Photos. Bank transfers. Emails. Minho tried to stand up, panic overtaking the pain. You went into my safe? You went into my computer? You left your computer open every night, Adana replied. You thought, she is just an African village girl, she doesn't know how to read a spreadsheet. You were so arrogant you didn't even put a password on the private folder. Minho lunged for the USB drive with his good hand, but Adana didn't move to stop him. She just watched him grab it. I will burn this, Minho shouted, clutching the drive. I will destroy it. You have nothing. Adana shook her head slowly. She looked at him with pity. That is just a copy, Minho. I sent the original files to the Seoul District Prosecutor's office 10 minutes ago. While you were screaming about your arm. Minho froze. The drive slipped from his fingers and fell to the floor. You destroyed me, he gasped. I am your husband. No, Adana corrected him. You are my husband. But a husband protects his family. You threatened mine. She walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Below, on the busy Seoul street, blue and red lights were flashing. The sound of sirens grew louder, cutting through the night air. Do you hear that? Adana asked. That is not for me. That is for you. Minho slumped against the sofa, defeated. He looked at his broken arm, then at the wife he had tormented for years. He realized too late that the most dangerous person in the room wasn't the one with the loudest voice. It was the one who had been taking notes. The police are here, Adana said, turning away from the window. Try not to cry when they handcuff you. It makes you look weak. The police officers did not take off their shoes when they entered. They swarmed the penthouse, their heavy boots thudding on the marble floor. Minho did not fight. He couldn't. His arm was broken, and his spirit was crushed. Adana stood by the window, her hands resting protectively on her belly, watching as they read him his rights. As they dragged him out, Minho looked back at her. His eyes were wide with fear, pleading for her to save him. Adana, please, he whimpered. I am the father of your child. Adana's face remained like stone. No, Minho. You are just a donor. The door closed behind him. The apartment was finally silent. But this time, it was not the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of peace. Adana's phone began to ring. It was Mrs. Park. Adana picked it up one last time. What have you done? Mrs. Park screamed on the other end. You ungrateful wretch. You ruined my son. Your son ruined himself, Adana said calmly. Do not call this number again. The penthouse belongs to me now. The company belongs to the shareholders I spoke to this morning. You have nothing. She hung up and blocked the number. She walked to the mirror, the same mirror where she used to hide her strength. She smiled. The mask was gone forever. 5 years later, the morning sun shined brightly into the large windows of the Lioness Dojo in downtown Seoul. The room was filled with the sound of snapping uniforms and loud shouts. Adana walked through the rows of students. She wore a black belt with a gold stripe. She looked strong, healthy, and happy. Focus, she commanded in Korean, her voice commanding respect. Strength is not about anger. Strength is about control. A little girl, 5 years old with curly hair and bright eyes, ran across the mats. She wore a tiny white uniform. Mama, the girl chirped. I did the kick. Did you see? Adana knelt down and scooped her daughter, Chinera, into her arms. I saw, my love. It was perfect. Am I a lion now? Chinera asked, making a small growling face. Adana laughed, hugging her tight. You are a lion cub. But remember the rule. Chinera nodded seriously. Be gentle like a dove so they feel safe. But if they try to hurt us, we roar, Adana finished, kissing her daughter's forehead. Adana looked around the dojo. She had built a life from the ashes of her pain. She was respected. She was loved. She was free. She looked out the window at the busy streets of Seoul. She was no longer the invisible wife hiding in the shadows. She was the queen of her own life, and she would never bow her head again. And that brings tonight's story to a close, besties. Please don't forget to subscribe. We have to hit 1,000 besties just to prove my stepmother wrong. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and let us know where you're tuning in from. Until next time, grab your tea and stay cozy. Good night.